Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind, everyone. I am Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today, joined by my faithful colleague, Vern Schellinger. Thank you, Vern, for joining us as always. And Alki Thompson won't be able to join us today or for this February. He'll be on and off during the spring. He's got some other commitments, but Vern and I are delighted to support you. Okay, so with that, this, as you all know, this is an open Q&A for job seekers. So we welcome your questions of any sort. Please know that Vern and I are not federal government experts. And I know, especially with what's going on these days, that's a very big topic, but that is not our expertise. We know just a little bit. We'll probably have to refer you to some other folks. In fact, there is a coach by the name of Corliss Jackson, who specializes in federal government employment. So her company is called federaljobresults.com. So Corliss at federaljobresults.com if you're looking for federal government employment support. So with that, who would like to kick us off with a job search question? It could be on any topic: resumes, interviewing, networking, whatever's on your heart and mind.
Well, I could start by introducing myself because this is the first time I joined the group.
Wonderful. Well,
I just don't like
and do
currently.
you pronounce your name Marie Angie? Am I saying that
I
correctly?
just go by Angie because it's
Angie. Okay.
easier.
Angie,
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, as I said, this is actually my first time joining. I saw this event on the Meetup website, and I was like, I'm gonna try to join once, see how it goes. So my name is Angie. I'm actually a student. I'm a senior biomedical engineering student at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and
Oh,
I'm graduating this May, so I'm looking for a full-time opportunity. And I actually did have a question. I know that most of the job search is networking, right? Like you
yes.
can just apply for a mass number of
Yeah, it
applications
doesn't
and
work.
hope to
Yeah,
get noticed.
networking. That's right.
Right. So my question would be, when do you know how to stop? Well, I'm gonna say bugging for lack of better words, but like, how do you know when to stop persisting in your networking for one specific person that you want to get an answer from? Because like, how do you go from determined to desperate? That's
That's
my question.
great. Yeah, everybody on the call is smiling because everybody's been there. We all understand this. You've just articulated what a lot of people think. Angie, thank you for that. Great question. I'll go ahead and address it, and then Vern, who is an expert networker as well, he I'm sure has what to say. So here's my broad, kind of statement around that. I'm going to say it this way: relationship rules apply. Relationship rules apply. Okay. At the end of the day, these are relationships that we are building and that we are cultivating with our colleagues. Okay. So, what you want to do is you always want to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. If you were on the receiving end of whoever was trying to network with you, what would you feel might be appropriate? Now, part of that has to do with the nature of your relationship to that person. Now, let's think of it this way. And this is sort of the continuum, right? You've got people on the one hand who you are very, very close to. They're your friends, they're your best friend, your family. Those are your dailies, right? Obviously, you can bug them as much as you want because you have invested what we call
Mhm,
relationship capital, right?
mhm,
Close, you love you love each other, right? You are in each other's world, you are each other's biggest champions. And then you go down the continuum, right? People who are maybe close but maybe not as close, and all the way down to acquaintances or even full strangers, people you don't know. And Vern has
mhm.
a beautiful chart. I call it the 6 A's. Might have a different name for it: of allies and acquaintances, all these different people. In fact, Vern, after I'm done, I'd love for you to show it or at least talk about it.
Yeah.
And I mention that, Angie, because at a high level, we have to really think about what is our relationship to that person, okay? And what is our relationship to the people who know those people? So, for example, in LinkedIn, we all know that we've got first levels, second levels, and third levels, right? And
Mhm.
so your second level connection, that means you have a mutual connection in between you and that person. All right. And that relationship can matter. How well you know the person in the middle and how well they know that person can
Mhm,
matter as well. And I really want you to think of, and then that's why I don't want you to think of people as just names, like just, oh, I'm just going to use you to get me a job. How do you know this person? How well do people who know this person know you? All of those things matter. That's the highest level framing that I want to give you. Think of
Mhm.
it as a relationship, number one. Number two, then you get down to the practicalities of the specific situation that you're in. Why are you reaching out to this person? Is it because you've submitted a resume for an existing job and you're trying to get noticed? Is it because you've actually been on an interview and you're trying to find out more information? Or maybe it's the flip end. You don't even have a job. There's no opportunity there yet, but you're just interested in exploring. All of these things matter in terms of the reason and the way that you approach people. But as far as your talk about persistence and such, right? I would say that if you have that little niggly feeling that says, I think I might be just extending myself, listen to that. Because it
Mm,
very well might be that it's a little, right? That maybe it's gone a little. You just want to think how far should I stretch that relationship rubber band? And I can't tell you exactly in your situation because you don't know. But what I would suggest is that you think about what is most relationally appropriate way for me to pursue that context. That's my general. Vern, I'd love for you to have a thought. And by the way, I'd love to hear from other people as well. If you have some specific ideas and examples of ways you've done this and what's worked and what hasn't, I think Angie would benefit from it. So, Vern?
Yeah. So Angie, you talked about how do I know that I'm not bugging these people and so forth and so on. And as Shira said, it's all about relationships. And once you build a what we call a context count, a trust-based, mutually beneficial relationship, those people in your network you will never bug. So for instance, Shira and I have that type of relationship.
Right.
I can call Shira at any point in
That's right.
time. She can call me at any point in time. No questions asked. I would never think that Shira would be, bugging me for anything because we have this type of a relationship. So those are the types of relationships that over time you want to develop. You're really early in your career. So think about it from a long-term perspective in terms of your career. So how do you develop those relationships? As Shira said, at Context Count, we talk about um, networking simply being about teaching and giving. So as you're asking people to give you help you find a job, how do you give back to them?
Hmm.
And sometimes it can be as simple as, and it may not be in the moment, but after the meeting, you see an article that you think they'd be interested in, send it to them. If there's somebody that you know that you think that might think they would be interested in talking to, ask them, I have a professor who's an expert in that field, and I know he'd be willing to talk to you. Would you be interested in that? If they say yes, you make the connection. Those types of little acts begin to build trust and confidence in Angie as a person. And so the more of that you do over time, the more invested people become in you, and then therefore you're not bugging them. As Shira said, we have a diagram in context count where we talk about every single conversation that you have with anyone, any place, at any time can be categorized as an accident. Okay, you're standing in line to buy tickets for Taylor Swift and you're there for hours. Okay, that's an accident. Okay, then there are acquaintances, people who you know vaguely, but somebody in your network knows them and you know they could introduce you to them if you needed to find them. And then there is what we call associates. And associates, and most people don't think about this, but literally anyone that's in any common grouping that you are in is an associate. You may have never talked to them at all, but you have a pretty easy segue to begin a conversation. So everybody who's a classmate of yours in the bioengineering program is an associate. And you may have talked to many of them, but maybe not all of them. But at any point in time, you might see each other in classes. You might start a conversation with them, and you've got something in common with them to start with. Anyone in your place of worship, anyone in any club or club or group that you belong to, People at the gym, that if you have a membership at the gym, you have this common bond and you can start a relationship. And then the fourth A is what we call actively participating in conversations. And over time, you begin to develop what I was referring to as those trust-based, mutually beneficial relationships. And then you have people who become your advocates. In the example that I was giving with Shira, we're advocates for each other. We will help each other any way, anytime. Uh, Help with a problem, pass information along, introduce Shira to other people, and those are the people that are going to be not only valuable to you as you find your first job, but as you go through your entire career. So let me stop there and see if you have any questions or anybody else
And I'll
has
just
any
and I'll just
questions.
make one more comment here because we've talked a lot about relationships on the practical level, Marie or Angie. When it comes to the okay, how far should you stretch the rubber band? Here, I'm going to give you just a little practical tip. So let's just say you are, obviously I'm speaking to everyone here. Let's say you have, you're interested in, Aggie, Vern, if you can you pull up the graphic for your 6As while I'm
I,
speaking? Are you able to pull it up?
I can try Shira,
You
but
know
I
what? Actually, you know what, Angie, I have it. I just realized
have
because
it. Okay.
Vern and I gave a joint talk together, and I do have it. Give me 1 second. Here we go. And then I'm going to give a very practical tip here.
Yeah, the reason I'm hesitating, Shira, is I just moved into a new house. I wasn't even sure
Oh,
that I
you're
was going to be up to
yeah,
the,
yeah.
into
No, we're
the internet, but I'm
we're
happy I'm here. So,
I just found it. I just found it.
okay.
Okay, we're good. I'll pull it up and then I will give the practical resource.
In fact, now that you're pulling it up, the other piece of that diagram talks about dormant relationships. So,
And I'll expand it here.
yeah.
Okay. If you all want to take a picture of that, you're welcome to. But for example, on a practical level, let's say you've gotten somebody to champion your candidacy, right? You've got an internal champion. You know somebody who knows somebody in the company that you're trying to get an interview with. Okay.
Mhm.
You're trying to figure out, is my candidacy viable? Try once, try a second time, wait, I would say wait maybe a couple of weeks in between, right? You don't want to keep bugging them. And you want to be kind. I mean, I'm sure you would be, right? But you want to be very kind, right? When you're reaching out and thank them for their help. And is there anything else that you could do to help move your candidacy along? Any questions they have, right? You just be relational in how you do it because obviously you're asking for help, right? For somebody to do this for you. And of course, they're very busy. And just remember too, if they don't get back to you, it's not necessarily because they have anything bad to say or that they don't want to help. They probably want to help, but they're busy. Everybody's super busy. Everybody's overwhelmed, right? With a lot of stimuli. And especially if you're going to be reaching out through LinkedIn, a lot of people don't check their LinkedIn. So you might send a LinkedIn message, they just may not see it. So I always recommend everyone on this call, I always recommend whenever you are reaching out to any of your contacts, do double duty. Send a LinkedIn message and an email. LinkedIn message and an email. Now, of course, if you have a closer relationship, send them a text, obviously, right? That's without saying. But if you don't know them as well, LinkedIn and email, because you never know which one they may not see.
Mhm.
All right. So hopefully that helped you, Angie.
No, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I like the 6 A's. I haven't thought of it that way. And I'll make sure to apply that double rule because I'm very concerned to overstep boundaries. Like
Mhm.
I do wanna do everything that I can to, catch people's attention, try to get help and, get to the point where I want to get, but I don't want to seem annoying too, and I definitely don't want to seem desperate because maybe I am, I just don't want to show it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So, anyone else have a question? Oh, Pete, I think you had a question. Okay.
So actually, I was just going to add a comment there.
Okay.
Uh, I guess depending on how outgoing you are, or if you're, uh, an introvert or whatever, sometimes it might be beneficial to be bold. And I guess, go out a little bit further than you're comfortable to try and distinguish and set yourself apart from the other competition, I guess would
Yeah.
be my
Yeah, one other
potential
important
advice.
yeah, one other important point about networking is, we all meet, hundreds of people, throughout our life, probably thousands. And some people they're just the way they're wired, they don't want to talk. They're very introverted, or they're the other end of the spectrum. They're, as Shira said, they're so busy. Just just don't spend your time trying to develop a relationship if you can see that, this just is not going anywhere. There's
Right.
lots of other people you can
Hmm.
talk to. So,
Can I add something and then ask another follow-up question? So one thing I wanted to do is invite folks to connect with me on LinkedIn. I find that these sort of events are really great ways to build relationships. And Vern, it really resonates with me, these sort of happy accidents. So like Angie, I'm a leader in learning and development. So we might not think we have a whole lot in common, but I'm actually in the electric industry and have connections also to engineers. And so sort of building these wide networks, especially for me in learning and development, which isn't its own industry, right? It's similar to HR in that you could work in industry. So I just want to put that out there, invite everyone to connect with me. And then my follow-up question is about the hidden job market, right? So we're talking about networking as a way to tap into that hidden job market. And I was wondering, Shira and Vern, if you have other tips for how to do that.
That's interesting you said that, Rachel, because that's actually the title of the presentation that I do and that I invited Vern and I did together. So it's called Accessing the Job Market. So first of all, actually, before I address that, I want to pull a little thread from what you just said about, you mentioned L&D and you mentioned engineering. I actually have a concept, a branding concept around that. I think this should be very helpful for everyone here. Some of you might have heard me talk about it before. I call it the difference between your lane and your community. Your lane and your community. Your lane is your profession, Rachel, that's L&D. Your community is the industry, mission, or sector that you serve. So engineering. It's a very, very helpful distinction when you're thinking about your branding, the kind of job you're looking for, how you want to promote yourself, how you want to do your resume, how you want to, network, right? All of those things are very, very important. And how you are connecting with people, even on a call like this, right? And so I want you to think about when you're laying in your community. So for example, Rachel, here you mentioned the engineering community. Anybody else in the STEM world on this call? Maybe, right? Anyone else that's in the broader learning and development world and training and maybe organizational development? Maybe, right? Are there people with whom you can connect, right? And make those kinds of viable connections. I just want to put that out there. As far as the, in terms of the more specific networking and accessing the hidden job market, I'm going to give you another parallel to what Vern talked about. And so he uses sort of like those A's. So I will use what I call the family tree of networking.
Mm-hmm.
And the family tree of networking, I mentioned twins, siblings, first cousins, and second cousins. Okay. So your twins relationally are the people who know you, love you, trust you. Your siblings are the people that, like Vern and I would be siblings. You're close to, right? And your trusted colleagues. Your first cousins, right, are people who are you may be sort of dormant relationships. And then your second cousins are people who you maybe have just had an acquaintance with. But that family tree also extends to the people who professionally get what you do. Your twins are the people who do what you do and are really great referral sources because they do what you do, right? They are likely to hear about opportunities that are not right for them, but could be right for you. Next down the line are your siblings. Your siblings are people who understand what you do. So for example, let's say you're in a marketing job. A sibling might be somebody in public relations. Okay. A first cousin is someone who's familiar with what you do, and a second cousin, barely acquainted with what you do. The point is this: as you're thinking about the hidden job market, I want you to think about the people who, number one, get what you do, who are going to be hearing about opportunities that are not right for them, but could be right for you. And then also the people who are relationally close to you. When you have that intersection, you are more likely to hear about opportunities because these are the people who can best help you and also want to help you. So when you go for that level, then you first, there's other levels down here, but the closest level, the best connections, people who get what you do, hear about right opportunities, and people who want to champion you. 80% of jobs are hidden from the market. You might know that statistic. Okay. It's totally true. I can absolutely guarantee that. I'm a recruiter. I'm a career coach. I'm telling you, Vern also has been an HR executive. He's also a coach. And we know this to be true. And the reason for that, by the way, is because employers get very overwhelmed when they post jobs on a job board. Very overwhelmed. It is not uncommon, and what I'm about to say, I'm not exaggerating at all. It is not uncommon for employers to get 1 to 200 resumes in the first 24 to 48 hours when they post a job online.
Mhm.
And they might end up taking the job down after 3 or 4 days because they're overwhelmed. I've done it myself. I mean, it's overwhelming, particularly if the job is remote, particularly. Okay. So I say that because it's important to think about who do you want to network with? Who do you want to network with? And where do you want to spend your time networking?
Mhm.
You want to maximize your time. Now, could you have those accidental conversations? Absolutely. Vern and I know of a story on this call a few years ago. There was somebody, what was her name? I keep forgetting, Marie? Melissa. The one from, was it Michigan?
Oh, no,
Not
that was
Melissa. No, no, it's another one. Yeah.
That-
So we had this woman. It was a great, I mean, look, these things do happen. There's this woman, she was on our call. She got a job. We asked her, how'd you get the job? And she said I think she lived in Michigan, and she came down to DC. She was with some friends. She was at a jazz club, heard a great jazz band, talked to the band at the end of the meeting, just at the end of the set, just because she liked them. Turns out she struck up a relationship with the band leader. Band leader's like, why are you here? Oh, I'm looking for a job. What do you do? She says, I'm an office manager. And he goes, oh, do you know QuickBooks? She goes, yes. Turns out that he was like a doctor or something. And he hired her. He hired her.
Mm.
Right. Okay. These
Let
things.
me, let me add one important point to that. So Sandy actually was leaving with her friend who was not feeling well. And the band convinced Sandy to stay. Why don't you stay and listen to us, right?
Mm.
Listen to another set. Sandy listened to another set. She said, I got to get out of here. She actually left. She got outside the door and she said, I really need to thank the band. Now, remember when I said about teaching and giving? This was such a small give. She went back in to
Mhm.
thank them for really making her night, you know,
Mhm.
something different, and she really enjoyed it. And that's how the conversation started about, well, what do you do and where are you, and that's how she got the job because she went back in for that simple give.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
those things can happen for sure. All right.
yeah,
That was
that's
really,
rare.
it's very rare. It does happen. That was certainly a job hidden from the market. Okay. With that said, if you're going to maximize your time, I would recommend going really, focusing in on, again, the people who do, and I mean the people who do, Rachel, exactly what you do. Exactly.
Yeah.
So in your case, I don't know how well networked you are in ATD. Are you involved in ATD at all? Okay.
I'm actively involved in ATD. Yeah.
Which would make a lot of sense. And those are people, and I just mentioned the name of an association that is in Rachel's lane. But remember, when you're networking with people in your lane, they may or may not be from your community, which could be fine, could totally be fine. But when it's both, see, that's where you're minimizing the employer's risk.
Shira, that is so, so, so helpful to me because I've been thinking a lot about my personal brand and sort of, and I don't like, I'm actually trying to get out of the electric industry. It's a little more traditional and it's not really, it's slow paced. It's about compliance training. And so that's helpful to me. So like my profession isn't changing.
Right.
I do want a different industry.
Right.
Yeah. So no, that was
That's really, really important to think about. And so you can brand yourself. Just so you know, I speak on this honestly because I'm a resume writer and I write LinkedIn profiles and I do branding right around this stuff. So that's my lens. You can brand yourself with just your lane.
Mhm.
You can focus your resume on your lane. You can focus your LinkedIn profile, your about section on your lane if you're a lane person. If you are also a community person, you can blend the two. So for example, if you wanted to brand yourself as I'm just going to say STEM, or, scientific L&D professional, you could do that. Or engineering related L&D professional, you can do that. And employers actually would be very thankful if you did, if that is your brand and you are applying, if you're specifically going after L&D jobs in engineering companies, they would love to see that you're part of their in the community. Employers are trying to minimize their risk. So the closer you can get to the lane in the community of that job, the more likely it is they're going to feel love, right? As you step away from that, it's not impossible to get those jobs, but you have to be very, very intentional in your branding to minimize the risk. So you need to show the keywords on your resume. When you're doing your networking, you need to speak to the specific problems you can help people solve. Your LinkedIn profile, the same thing. You really want to make sure that you are focused in on the people that you can best serve. And when they sense that, that's when the connection is made. Okay, so that's just kind of like a high level.
Yeah, I've got one more point here. The tagline at Context Count is called "The Power of Human Connection." So, Rachel, Rachel, you and I met because I reached out to you. Okay, so follow this. I sent Rachel a LinkedIn request, and I'm looking for L&D or HR professionals to give me some feedback about Context Count and how I might improve it and what my business is all about. And Rachel, now I sent that email to lots of people, and I got some responses. Lots of people said no thanks and so forth and so on. Rachel said yes. So Rachel and I had a conversation a week or two ago, and now Rachel's on this call, Angie's on this call, and there may be a connection for Angie. That's the power of human connection. It just that's what happens. The more and more networking you do, the more and more relationships you build, the more of those experiences you will have. Just as Shira's pointing out to you, Rachel, get with, you're an ATD, you're active, so you've got an incredible resource there to help you find that hidden job market.
Is that helpful?
This is great. Thank you, Shira and Vern.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, other questions?
I have a, excuse me, I have a follow-up question, I think. How is everyone this morning?
Blessed. Thank you.
Well,
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. So I have a specific example, and then I have a slightly broader question. So I was applying for a position. It seems like it was out there for a while. I followed the best practices I've been hearing in this group. Um, and contacted a friend who knew somebody there. So they said I could use their name as a referral. I really didn't know the person who worked there, but they said yes to that. As I kept looking on LinkedIn, I actually saw someone I knew who worked there. Hadn't been in touch with them in many, many years, but I reached out to them on LinkedIn and they said I could contact them after 5:30 that night. So I sent a text saying, is this now a good time? And I never heard back, but I went ahead and applied. So with the person that I know, should I keep reaching out and saying, you know, is there another convenient time that we could speak so I could just get a little bit more background?
I
It sounded like I'm probably answering my own question, but when someone is so specific about a window like that and you don't hear from them, you know,
Yeah,
um,
right. Especially that when they give a particular window, that means that they're interested in talking to you. But life happened. We've all
yeah.
had it happen. Look at all the people, the texts that we send to our friends, and then we don't hear back from them. And you know how it is, right? You see the text, you read it, and then you forget to do the mark as unread. and then you're on to the next thing, and all of a sudden it's out of your brain. You have very good intentions, but we all do it. It's just busy in life. So I would absolutely send a friendly prompt
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. And
Excellent.
then my other question is, I've found that when I've gone to, let's say, a career fair type of event, when you're there talking to people representing their organizations or companies, they're very friendly, they're very warm. They say, "Oh, contact me, LinkedIn, etc." So I'll do that and just never really hear back from them.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing it's the same thing. They're busy,
That's
right?
that's right.
But I don't know. It just seems like that's something that happens on a regular basis. Because I know in one case, it was one organization I was interested in, and this woman worked in the department. I do marketing, and she said, "Oh, we need that skill set." So she said, "Contact me on Tuesday." And she gave me a tip so she would remember me. So it sounded great. So I did. I followed up. She said she was out of the office, followed up. So what we had said was we were going to discuss the department. I followed up after a while when I didn't hear from her. I didn't follow up as much. But then I got an email from her saying, "Here's a link to apply for jobs." And I'm thinking, wow, I mean, I knew that. I knew that. Everybody knows that. It was a little weird. It was definitely
Yeah.
I'm no longer available
Right.
type of response.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is another common human reaction when you're actually having a conversation with someone and they offer to help, and they're very willing to, they seem to be very willing to help, and then you know they go as Aggie is saying, they just simply seem to disappear. And I don't know what to tell you about that, but that's what happens. Shira and I do a lot of this pro bono work, and the only thing that I ask when I help somebody is let me know how it went, right? If I give somebody some advice, get back to me and just tell me how it went, and what Shira and I, you know, uh, I guess thrive on. We feel good about, we feel grateful if somebody gets back to us and says, "Wow, that really helped me out. That was really great." But a lot of people won't even, they'll say, "Sure, I'll get back to you," and then they never get back to me, and I'm going, well, that's kind of disappointing. But that as Shira said, people get busy and they move on. So you just have to roll with the punches sometimes. It's frustrating, but you have to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was just wondering, in that context where it is a career fair, um, if they're recruiters, if they're there, they're representing their, again, their organizations or companies, um, shouldn't there be, I don't know, a little bit more responsibility because that was, their role there, or it's just
Yeah.
people get busy.
Well, Shira said I was in HR for a long part of my career, and I've seen great HR departments, and I've seen less than great HR departments. And so you just
Yeah,
that's life.
every situation is different. I mean, we're dealing with people. There's no one way that people do these things. Their busyness, their interest level, the other priorities that they have. Things change even in the interview process, right? So you might go through an interview process and they're all in love with you and it's great, 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 great. And all of a sudden, at the very end, things change. You never know. Maybe other candidate slipped in the middle. They decided to put a pause in the position. Somebody went on vacation. The hiring manager changed their mind. So, there's a million things that happen, right? And so what we have to do is we have to be flexible
Yeah.
and go with the flow in that particular moment. And yeah, if you feel like you need to push a little bit, okay, just to kind of prod and see, okay, can I get more traction? But at the end of the day, if somebody says, look, here's the best I can do, it's the best that they can do. You just never know. We have to pack our patience. I think that's the thing that I always say in these job searches. Pack your patience. Be a little proactive, but also pack your patience. There's
Mhm.
always that balance. Bridget?
Bridget?
So something similar, but this is what I did. A colleague reached out and said, so I have an immediate need and I'm also looking for a long term. And a colleague reached out and said, someone's super busy. They're looking for someone to essentially be another facilitator. And I'm going to reach out. And so she connected us and we connected with each other. And the woman said, um, I'll contact you. So that meant I took it as she's going to contact me. I'm not going to reach out. She's super busy. I understood that. So that was on Monday. And I waited, like I don't know if it's weird, but I put it on the calendar. So yesterday, I said, I haven't heard from her. And because this colleague connected us, I reached out on Thursday via text because that's how we knew each other. And I just said, let me know when you're ready to chat. Here's my availability. She wrote back, I forgot because I'm super swamped. Let me call you after I'm done. And I said, okay. At this point, it was Thursday, and I feel like, also what I said was, I heard you were busy. I think I'm your answer. Something like that. I think that was corny, but I said it anyway. Um, After that, I'm thinking following up maybe on Tuesday. I don't know. It sounds like she has an immediate need. I have an immediate need. I think it's a good fit, but I actually haven't talked to her. And I'm thinking giving her this weekend and then maybe reaching out again on Tuesday or Wednesday. Is that a good thing, or should I not respond to her and just respond to the person who connected us, just saying, thanks, I reached out? I don't know. It's all by text and kind of professional, but not, so I don't know. Any comments?
Vern, I'm so sorry. I was responding to somebody in the chat, so
Oh,
I wasn't able to connect with the whole thing. Vern, are you able to respond? I apologize.
anybody can
I'm trying
chime
to
in.
multitask here. Sorry.
And I was looking at the chat too, but I think mostly what you
Sorry.
Well,
said,
Bridget,
Bridget.
Bridget,
Oh my
just
goodness,
I
that's
I'll
my problem. Okay.
okay. So Bridget, just because we have these real specific cases, and just based on what I heard before, I would definitely follow up again. I mean, she said I'm super swamped. She said I'm going to contact you right after this, and she probably became busy again. So yeah, I would say try again by Tuesday and maybe every 3 days, and also say if I'm reaching out to you too much, let me know, just trying to make it convenient for you or as a reminder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
did
don't
hear
want,
enough. I did hear enough of what you said, Bridget. That's what I would have said. So
yeah, I don't want to sound desperate, but if she's in a pinch because her company is growing and I have that experience of facilitating, even if it's part-time,
Mhm.
I just thought, okay, I will give her space, but not overwhelm her and make a little, I don't know, maybe corny, like that's why I'm here to help. So, okay, I'll wait and I'll
Hmm.
do again every 3 or 4 days.
I would recommend the same.
Thank you.
And just a gentle note.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Other questions?
I've got one, and it's related, and Vern touched on it a while back. Um, I've been fortunate in the sense that people have offered me access to their networks. These are people I don't even know particularly. In one case, a few weeks ago, I was introduced by somebody who I really don't know to a firm that he works for. Um, they would have no interest in what I do, but I spoke with one of the principals there, and they were very helpful. And the principal said, "Look at my client list. If there's anybody you want me to put you in touch with, make an introduction. I'd be glad to do it." Um, Obviously, there is an implied in all this relationship building. On one level, there is an implied quid pro quo. You want to do so. You want a relationship, which means you've got to provide some value at some point in some way. Um, in this case, probably the best thing I could have done for them was refer new possible clients. But frankly, I don't have anybody, and I'm not necessarily in a position to switch my own accounts. What does one do? In addition, Vern mentioned sending articles that might be relevant to them. What else does one do to try to fulfill that part of the relationship where uh, something that would be directly helpful to them is something that you're not at the moment in position
I
to
would
teach them?
actually challenge the premise of that. I
Okay.
don't believe in the quid pro quo. I just don't.
Yeah.
I believe
Okay.
that we should be helping people because we should be helping people, period, end. And if somebody believes that, is that that's the way that the relationship, God bless them, but that's not, you don't, no. Send an article because it's good to send an article, right?
Mhm.
And it's helpful to them. And it is a good way to build relationships, if not for the tit for tat and reciprocity and no, you're like, for example, you're not gonna, I know, Mark, you're not gonna need somebody to do something for you in order for you to help them. Of course not, right? You're gonna give to people. So just reach out. Now, look, if you are able to make a connection for them that's meaningful, fabulous. You're out and about, you're hearing about people who might need a new
Mhm.
banking financial professional. Absolutely. But yeah, I just wouldn't go with that premise.
It was a
And
poor choice of words on my part too. That was a little bit too transactional, but one hopes in any relationship that one can give something back that would be of useful use for that person. And
That's lovely. I always go with the pay it forward, right? Someone helps you, you help someone else, and you keep pushing forward. And you put, I would go more with that. But that said,
what,
look, if you can make a meaningful connection for that person, that's great. I just wouldn't do that as the premise of the relationship.
I just want to emphasize what Sharon just said because, again, at Context Count, I said it's about teaching and giving, but it's not, I did something for you, now you got to do something for me. I mean, that is not a relationship that's gonna last long term. It's not. And Mark, the give may come 6 months from now. All of a sudden, you may see something or be able to introduce them to somebody. And so the give can be immediate, right in the first conversation you're having with someone, or it might be
Mhm.
a week later, it might be a month later, it might be 6 months later. So,
thank you both.
yeah,
It's a good reminder.
yeah.
Did you have something to say about that?
I do have one suggestion. An ex-boyfriend told me this many years ago. As you said, sending an article, I think the whole thing is the spirit, being helpful, right? Whenever you can. But
Mhm.
he also mentioned if you help their kids out, they'll be
Mhm.
always very grateful.
Sure.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
know of any opportunities, internships, positions, that type of thing, right? It's still
Yeah.
part of the whole ecosystem, but
Mhm.
I do think it's a way to
Yeah.
it's a way to that people will be definitely grateful.
Thank
Yeah.
you. That's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, any way you can help. So yeah, that's a great example,
Yeah, it is.
Aggie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions, other thoughts? Pete?
So
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Pete. I apologize. Sounds like Pete had to, or unless Aggie wanted to continue.
I can continue. If there's time, I'll go afterwards.
oh, no, go ahead, Pete, because I've already asked the question.
Uh, I guess first a comment. I think it's good practice for people to put their first and last name on their, like when you join a Zoom call, in case people want to try and connect with you. Um, it's a helpful tip that I've heard from other calls
Yeah.
that I've been on. And then secondly, uh, Shira or Vern, do you have any sense on, now that we're post-election or post-inauguration, kind of what are you saying, the market open up more? Or companies,
This is the
know what they're dealing with now
time,
and
time will tell. If we're
Yeah.
very, very soon after all, there's a lot of disruption going on. I don't think anybody can predict
Yeah.
Look, even what happened 2 days ago, we were all in a flurry, like, oh my gosh, the federal grants are going away, and then 24 hours later is reversed. So there's just a lot of uncertainty around what is going to be. What I will say, and I actually wrote a blog post the other day about this, that I believe that things are going to shake out differently than we think, because seems like the administration's approach is what I'll call shoot for the stars and land on the moon. Okay, so it's kind of a go for more extreme, and then the negotiation happens, and then it lands out somewhere different. Okay. Um, so I just feel like this, we just don't know. I mean, will things be impacted? Yes. Will the government contractors be impacted? I'm sure. Will nonprofits be impacted? Probably. We're just like this much into it. I would say that this is probably going to be a time for innovation as well. I think people are going to be thinking about different ways to get funding, for example, here in the DMV. So, for example, people who used to rely on nonprofits who used to rely exclusively on government grants will probably start thinking about, oh, should I go to, more to corporate foundations, right? Or other kinds of donors. Like, I think there's going to be just a shift in the way people do business. And I think it's going to take some time to shake out around how that's going to look. That's my general opinion. But as far as affecting the job market, and it also depends on the sector. And I mean, like, all these things are going to be impacted. We just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I would echo that, Pete. That's, yeah.
Ask me in 6 months.
Unless you want to be an air controller.
Yeah.
Forget that.
Yeah.
All right. Other thoughts?
So I did have another question, slightly different topic area, which resumes. So with this group being, focused over a certain age, one thing I've run into is sort of how not to have too much information, not go too far back in experience, etc. What are people's thoughts on should you try to have your resume in that one page format,
Absolutely.
right? So
I no. No. I lovingly say no. And here's why. The one pager is actually makes experienced professionals seem too light, too inexperienced. Okay. There's very little real estate on a one pager. There's not
very
very
little,
much you
very
can
tiny
put.
font.
Yeah. And so if you're a recruiter and you're looking at a one-page resume, you're not seeing the depth of experience that you would expect to see from somebody who's a more experienced person. So let me just say that. One pagers, I would not. A recent grad, fine. But anybody else? So Angie, who's not on the call anymore, but Angie, sure. Everybody else, right? I'd absolutely go for the 2-page. I'd even say, ready? 3 pages is fine. It's fine. And here's why. A lot of us on this call remember the times when we did not have the internet. And how did we send resumes? We licked an envelope.
Yeah.
Maybe we sent a fax. Remember those days? We all remember those days. Most of us remember those days. Back in those days, the common wisdom was only have a 1 to 2 page resume. Why? Because when the recruiter opened up the envelope or took the fax out of the fax machine, you didn't want them to have a lot of pages. They didn't want to have a lot of pages because it was just too much for them to go through. So everything was truncated. Now everybody scrolls. So 3 pages is not a big deal anymore. They're not going to make that big of a difference. Now, I would not say to have 7 pages unless you're in the government or government contractor or higher education and you have a CV. Those are different. Higher education, government contractors, they need to know every time you tied your shoelaces. But other than those three, if it's regular private sector, 2-page resume, absolutely. 3-page, fine. And even, I mean, dare I say if it has to be a little longer, but only if you have to go longer than that, or let's say 3.5 plus, those should be the section for like certifications, or if you have publications or presentations or community service, those kinds of extras, that sometimes people include. But the actual substantive experience, 2 pages for sure. Go a little into 3, not a big deal. But more to the point around the age discrimination, I would recommend going back no more than about 20 years. Every recruiter has a little different take on that, 15, 20 plus, 20-ish. If you do feel like you need to share experience that was prior to 20 years, what I recommend is have a section that says prior experience. And you have company title, no dates. If you really need to, because those were companies that, were notable and you needed to mention them. But if you don't need to, don't even have that section, go back about 20 years and you should be fine.
So you said prior experience. I have it as additional
That's
experience,
fine.
but definitely no date.
Additional,
Yeah.
prior, early career experience, as a lot of people, there's a lot of phrases for it. That's fine.
Okay, that's helpful. I mine used to be about 2.5 pages. I took off things like my awards, volunteering to get it to 2 pages. I kind of do like it at 2 pages because I'm able to put the additional experience.
Yeah, two's fine, 2 to 3. Yeah, and what's more
Okay, thank
important
you.
even than that, sure. And what's more important even than the length are the keywords. Now, this is a whole other conversation we could get into. The keywords really, really, really matter. And not only do they matter in both what you say and how you format it. The what you say, you need to evaluate almost with a forensic lens, that job announcement. Look at the summary. Look at the first 3 to 4 bullets of the responsibilities. Look at the first 3 or 4 bullets of the qualifications. What are the specific competencies they are going after? That's what needs to be highlighted on your resume. In the career title that you put up top, if you have a text box that speaks to those competencies, and then more specifically, having what I call bolded skill labels next to every single accomplishment story. This is one of the most important tips I could give people. Most people's resumes are just a bunch of bullets. People don't read bullets very well, not in the way we used to. People scan resumes now. They don't really read. If you just have a bunch of bullets and those bullets are not labeled with a competency, it is very difficult for the employer to scan it, for them to see what you have down there. So I'm going to give you an example.
Please do.
Give me one moment.
And again, those bullets are things like leadership, project management, skills that you have that, again, to Shira's point, will line up with exactly what you're reading on the job description or the posting or whatever, because that's what the recruiter's looking for, right? If we say, as a recruiter, we need these 3 things, then we're looking for resumes that have those 3 things in it. So even if, you have to change it a little bit on your resume to tailor it to that particular opportunity, then that's what you should do when you're applying.
So this is what I'm referring to. This is the resume template that I use. As I mentioned, I'm a resume writer. And this is all very customizable. You'll see that at the top, it's very clean. It does not have a long summary. People don't read summaries anymore. It has a career title that is customizable. So you'll see, for example, who was it? Was it Rachel who was talking about the L&D and the engineering? So remember lane and community. So this is the community association. The lane is education. Okay. So if you have the lane and community, you can put that up together or not, but you can do that. But the point is that these bullets are labeled with bolded key competencies. And that's important because as people scan down the page, as recruiter scans down the page, they want to quickly see keyword, 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 keyword. That's going to capture their attention. The keyword needs to be, again, relevant to the job description. They're not going to read the bullet unless they like what they see with the keywords. Because they've got hundreds of resumes, right? They're doing quick. A pile, B pile, C pile. You want to land in the A pile. They're doing it seriously, quick as a bunny. And I'm not kidding. 2 seconds. Two seconds. They make a quick decision. You've spent all that time on your resume, but they're really making that decision super quickly. Once they put you in the A pile, they might go back and read, or right before the interview, they might go back and read specifically what your stories are, and then they can use that for the interview. But to get yourself noticed, you want to make sure that the keywords are bolded. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And by the way, with this particular resume, see prior experience, volunteer, education certifications, right? And even went on a little bit beyond that. That's a way you could use format the end of your resume. Just wanted to toss that in there. Aggie, was that helpful?
Yes, thank you. the bolding. So I've bolded quantifiable results, but I
Yeah,
think that makes sense.
this is a
Bold
lot.
the keywords.
Exactly. People do that sometimes. They'll do the quantifiable or they'll do like a key phrase. The thing is, if you think of it optically, it's hard for the eye to sort of like focus. Wait, where am I going? Whereas if it's just down the side and it's keyword, 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 those keywords are what helps the employer decide, do you make the first cut? Do you have it's like think of it like you're ordering a toaster oven on Amazon. Okay. So what kind of toaster oven do you want? You want a 4 slice, not a 2 slice. And you also want silver, not black. And you want something that's energy efficient, let's say. Well, when you're looking for that toaster oven, the first thing you're going to put in is toaster oven in the search bar. You're not going to put in energy efficient. Otherwise, you get way too many, you get other appliances. You start with the top level. Then
Right.
you go down to the 4 slice. Then you go down to the energy, the color, and right? It's the same thing. My employer is doing the same thing. Who am I looking for? I'm looking for a director of marketing. That's my toaster oven.
Right.
Great. That's my A pile. Anybody else goes out. Next level, I'm looking for somebody who's in the nonprofit sector. Great. Everyone else goes out. Then I'm looking for the keywords, the key skills, social media strategy and channel partnerships. And those are the keywords you want to put in. All the rest of it, the metrics, and which are very important, that's more like, the black versus the gray, or the reviews, or all the extra stuff. They're only going to look at those percentages and things once they decide they actually want to interview you. Then it's like, okay, what has she done? So first they have to decide, do you meet the major qualifications? And if you do, then they can go deeper into, well, okay, now I've got 10 candidates who all meet the basic qualifications. Who's done what? How have they done it? Who's used the metrics? I got to interview them, see their personality fit, all the stuff. But you got to check the major boxes before they'll even get to the point where they can ask you those questions about how you've done what you've done. Does that make sense? So those key bolded labels are much more important than labeling metrics, for example, on the resume.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Buki
Insightful.
has a
Thank you.
question. What?
Yes, thank you, Corinne. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So my question is, when do you know when to switch up your strategy or to maybe altogether change career path? So I have a longer explanation to this that Bernie knows about, but just to keep everything short, I'm at a point where I'm like, am I even applying for the right jobs? One, am I in the right industry? Two, am I in the right field? Three, like I've been on this journey for a long time, and it's starting to make me feel like what am I really doing? And I'm saying that just because something happened this week that just got me to the point of like, what's really going on? So yeah, I feel like I've always changed career paths just because I haven't been able to really accumulate years of experience in a specific field. Although if you look at my resume, there are some synergy in my job titles and responsibilities, but I'm just at a point like, where do I go from here?
So
Yeah.
it sounds like you could benefit from some more customized coaching. I know Vern and I both offer 30-minute complimentary calls. So if you'd like to reach out to one or both of us, you're certainly welcome to. We would happy to hear your story a little bit more and see if we could provide more specific advice. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, and I have been meeting with Vernon here and there, so that's been helpful.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I know that it's a challenge, right? When you think, do I change? Do I shift? And obviously every situation is unique. So we would be happy to support you. So if you'd like to reach out to me too, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, sure.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
I have
Any?
one.
Yeah, sure, Quentin.
Hi, good morning. First time here as well. Thanks for the invite, Angie. Someone once told me that it's good to put the client in your resume, and I was wondering, is that really good advice? For example, I worked for mainly federal government um agencies.
Yep.
Is it should I keep doing that, putting the client or not?
Yeah. I'm going to give you a 98% qualified yes. Here's what I mean by that. The 98% qualified yes is employers very often want to know that you have worked for similar types of organizations. Remember the community lane community thing? That's the community piece.
Mhm.
Employers love it when you have worked for similar. So I'm going to make this up because I don't know your background, Quentin. But let's say you have you're in the I don't know, health and human services area, like health, right? So whether you've worked with HHS or you've worked with CDC or you've worked with NIH and you're looking for an organization that's in the kind of health sector, they're going to love the fact probably that you have experience with those kinds of organizations. So you would want to absolutely list it. But notice what I said, if it's related. Now, if you're trying to shift communities and you're trying to go into, I don't know, aerospace or something, you've got HHS, that may not be as helpful. Does that make sense? So you got to be a little careful in terms of which you do. The only other thing I would say is if there's anything confidential about the work, confidential not about the work, but about the fact that you worked for a certain agency, and here in the DMV we have some, as we say, three-letter agencies that we sometimes can't share. Right, what to share and what not to share. But the point is that you have to think, yes, is this proprietary? Is it confidential? A. B, is it going to be relevant to the type of employer that I am approaching? Will they believe that it's going to be helpful? Will they see me as part of the family? That's why I say community, right? It's a family kind of a thing. It's like, oh, you get us. Oh, you get our issues. You understand our people. And especially if it's like you're going after a government contractor and they've worked with that agency. Oh, that's even better, right? Because you come from the inside and now you're going to the other side and you get how the process works on the other side, right? So is that helpful?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Sure. Other thoughts, questions, ideas, things that have worked for you that you want to share? Any best practices you'd like to share with folks?
I have a question. Again, if your lane, if you're unable to find, I think it's your lane in the DMV, how are you able to find your community? Am I saying that right?
So I'll try to make it more clear. So the other way of saying lane is profession,
Okay.
career, and the other way of saying community is industry, mission, or sector.
Okay.
In other words, right? So if are you trying to shift your lane or shift your community?
My community was always in the creative space.
Okay.
I am not finding that in the DMV.
I see.
Just about everybody has moved away.
Yeah.
The companies.
Yeah.
So how do I take my lane into another community?
Yeah.
Especially since I don't know, I'm struggling to find this community.
Well, let's just understand too that we, unless you definitely need to work on site, there are plenty of remote jobs these days that are borderless, right? Like you can work about anywhere. So if your community went up to New York, because that's more where the creator, or LA or wherever,
yeah,
you can network with people who are outside the region, right?
Yeah.
Then does that make sense? So you don't necessarily need to stay in the DMV, I guess is my point, unless you definitely want to work inside an office. So I would encourage you to think about that first before shifting your community, because shifting communities is a little bit challenging, right? Because the employer's like, oh, well, you're from a different family, you're from a different community, right? We don't know each other real well.
Yeah, I'm getting weird looks when they see my resume. Like,
right.
Why
like,
are you even
don't understand.
in Maryland?
Right. Yeah. Right. Or like sometimes I'll have people from Baltimore from the manufacturing sector. They work for Black and Decker or wherever, and then they try to come down to DC, and we're like, we don't do manufacturing down here. So the community thing, not for nothing, right? It can be a thing. I would actually encourage you to change your geography scope and your community scope, and go look for the people who are in your community, and go on LinkedIn and literally put in LinkedIn in the search bar in the upper left-hand corner, the title of what you do, plus the kind of industry, right? Creative or whatever it is. and start seeing if you can find people who work in other regions, who do what you do and do it where you do it. Network with those people, and they're more likely to say, "Oh yeah, we've got a remote role," or maybe they're up in Philly or something, and you can take a train a couple days a week, or you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I would keep it more broad in geography.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Quentin, to answer your question, absolutely. I believe Vern does as well. We both offer one-to-one coaching for career pathing. Yeah, you're welcome to reach out to one or both of us or whoever you'd like to work with, for sure. Okay, so other thoughts, other questions, other ideas, things that have worked for you, best practices.
Um, I would just say to Bridget that yeah, there's definitely remote positions. I think one of the trends though going on,
Yeah.
am I still there?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
One of the trends going on though is that you're competing with the larger
it's true.
Mhm.
people.
It's absolutely true. The competition, thank you, Aggie. It's very, very stiff, right? Because this now, if it's a remote position, now you're competing with the whole country. That's absolutely true. Which is why the hidden network is so important to tap into, not necessarily applying for a job on LinkedIn or a job on Indeed, but when you leverage your network and that job is not posted and it's hidden, or maybe it's newly created, or maybe they just have never, they don't even have the job, but because they know of you, somebody goes,
Mhm.
"Oh, good. Well, look at the skills she has. She's amazing. We should create something for her." That absolutely can happen. So you definitely want to tap the hidden job market for that kind of a thing, for sure. Yeah, thanks, Aggie. It's
And
important.
then what Shira said too is something I've thought of. So with marketing, there's a lot of roles in New York. Um, and then they'll say hybrid. So I've thought, you know what? It is a possibility for me because I have an aunt who's got space. I would have, my own space there where let's say it's hybrid, I could be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then be back here in the DMV Thursday through Tuesday. So I'm like, that's doable. So as Shira said, if it's in Philly, take up the train. So, if it's going to be something that's going to really work, just think about, could your work lifestyle be possible that way?
All kinds of possibilities, but definitely try to stay in your community if at all possible, because they know you, they love you, they trust you, y'all get each other, you know? Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and we do this once in a while. Sometimes we do a little round the Zoom networking, so we can kind of see, where the connections can be made. So let's do this. I'm going to start. I'll mention who's who in order, and then what I'd like you to do is share who you are. But both things. Your lane. We all have a lane. Either a current lane. I know, Ola, soon you're shifting, but so you can share whatever you'd like. But the lane that you are going either have been in, but more importantly, where you're going, the lane you're going into or staying with. And if you have a community, you may not have a community. That's okay. So your lane is your profession, your community is the industry, mission, or sector. So if you can share those two things. And if there's a specific type of company you're looking to get into or specific part of a sector, mention that too. And then what I'd like for people to do is as soon as if you're comfortable with this, as soon as you're done with your 30 seconds, if you could pop your name and email into the chat so that other people can follow up if they have a lead. And anyone else might pop a hand up. So Gail's finished and Pete might say, "Oh, Gail, let's follow up. I have a contact at this sector or whatever." Okay, so let's just see if we can just do some popcorn networking. Okay, so we'll do Gail, Mark, Pete. I'll start with that and then I'll keep on going as we go along. So Gail, Mark, then Pete.
Okay, well, I'm sort of participating to benefit from y'all's experience and where you are, and because I'm just beginning another job search. So I would say my lane is project coordination and marketing, and profession includes experience in nonprofits with, I guess, specifically education and also working in IT.
And if anyone has a shout out for Gail, feel free to say something now. Otherwise, Gail, if you feel comfortable putting your email in the chat, then people can follow up with you. And also
Sure.
make sure to link in with each other as well. Mark?
Yes, uh, my lane, I suppose, is a little bit open. I'm an attorney. I've worked traditionally as an attorney, but I've also worked as a non-attorney in regulatory compliance. My area has been financial services, either working for banks through law firms or for the government. I'm seeking a position, preferably with a bank or other private financial services industry, entity or trade association, either in a legal capacity or a regulatory compliance or directorship capacity. Um,
Thank you, Mark. And again, reminder to put your email in if you'd like. Pete and
I
then
would be like,
Pete and then Edward.
I'm Pete Jones. Have a background in IT and cybersecurity management. So pretty much open to any organization or company, but preferably I'd like to work in the nonprofit space, and even more specifically in the Christian nonprofit space if I'm able to find something. Thanks.
Edward and then Bridget.
Well, good morning. I've very much enjoyed the conversation here. Thank you all for that. My name is Edward Knapp. I am a clinical pharmacist, and I am in the midst of a job search, which looks very different than it would have looked about a year ago. And my sector is specialty pharmacy. Also looking currently at outpatient ambulatory care, and contemplating whether I need to shift more broadly into things along the lines of medical science liaison, which is a world which I don't know too much about, but it does seem like it's a good fit for my skill set. So still investigating.
So Edward, if you could reach out to me, I have a new colleague client who is in the postdoc. So she's at Rutgers and she leads a postdoc pharmacy fellows program, and she's 30 years in the pharmacy industry and knows a lot of people who know a lot of people. So her name is Carolyn. So if you can just send me an email and I will do an introduction for you. If you just send me an email with your resume and just a little blurb about what you're looking for or what you think you're looking for, and I'll make the introduction.
See, this is the power. This is the power of human connection, Edward. I
That's
am
right. You
currently
never know. See,
working.
like you would never
Hey,
think that somebody like me would know somebody like that. And I just got this, I got with them
You have
and
a huge network, Shira. I am not surprised that you know that I either know somebody or know somebody
know
who knows
somebody who knows
somebody.
somebody. Yeah, yeah.
right. So, Edward, I am currently working with one of the largest pharma companies in the country, and I am working with a director who has a number of MSLs reporting to him, and I'm doing a contacts count training program with
Well,
them.
there you go.
So if you want to learn a little bit about MSLs, I can tell you a lot more than the average person because I'm learning it. But then it maybe I might be able to introduce you to someone else. So
Well, as I said, I would love to sit down and get some more information about that space because, as I
yeah,
said, I know of it, but I don't know it.
all right.
What would be a good contact for you?
Did you, I think Vern put his email in the
I
chat
put my email in the chat.
earlier in the thread.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Okay, Bridget, then Aggie.
Hi, my name is Brigitte Waits. I am a project manager and a producer. My community is the creative community, multimedia, digital content, in the creative space. What I understand is a lot of companies now have creative divisions. So I'm looking to stay in that, trying to stay in that area instead of shifting communities.
Aggie and then Quentin.
Hello, Aggie Intetta is my name, and I am searching for digital marketing positions from manager, senior manager, director level, or marketing positions. I've got quite extensive experience in that type of role, and my community has been primarily IT, but I've also worked government IT, and I've also worked for nonprofits. So I am open to, my preference would be something related to IT, but I'm definitely open to nonprofits with specific kind of focuses, um, as well as other sectors.
Thank you, Aggie. Quentin, then Mark, then Oluwaseun.
Good morning. Thanks for this. I'm really enjoying this networking session. My name is Quentin Adams. I am in the my lane is software development, mainly front end web development. My sector is the federal government, and also have a secret clearance.
Excellent. Are you comfortable sharing what part of the government, or if it's confidential on the public call, that's fine.
Oh, well, right now I'm not working, so but my last gig was with USAID.
Yes, I do. Okay.
I have worked with several three-letter agencies.
Okay. Got it. Mark, Mark, we already did, and then Oluwaseun.
All right, good morning, everyone. So, if I got this right, my lane is learning and development, community healthcare, although I am very willing to, to go a different routes, and I'm still looking for roles within L&D, so L&D management, L&D specialist, learning tech management, LMS administrator. Uh, yeah, currently in Minnesota, but I'm open to relocating as well.
And was it Rachel who was on the call earlier who said that she was an L&D? Does anybody remember?
Yes, I did send her a connection
Good.
request on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah.
The power of network. And that's the thing, right? Lane to lane, right? It's always good.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the formal part of this call. For those of you who would like to stay on for a short prayer call, I'll be leading that. And I will look forward to seeing everyone in 2 weeks for our next session, which I guess will be, I think it'll be Valentine's Day, so it'll be a nice day to meet again. God bless everyone, and look to the Lord for your strength, because in disruptive times, we especially need to do that. Okay? And every day. All right, thanks everyone.